Imagine being called a liar by the one person who should have believed you. Imagine losing everything, your home, your family, your future, because you spoke the truth. That was Chioma's reality. But this is not just a story of pain. It's a story of redemption, shocking betrayal, and a YouTuber who saw what everyone else missed. How did a homeless drug addict become a voice for the voiceless? Sit back and find out. This is the story of Chioma, a 22-year-old girl who once had dreams bigger than Lagos itself. But when we first meet her, she is sitting under Eco Bridge, her clothes torn and dirty, her eyes red and empty. It was early morning. The sun was just rising, and the bridge was quiet except for the sound of cars passing above. Chioma sat on a piece of cardboard, her back against the concrete pillar. Her hands were shaking, not from cold, from craving. She reached into her small bag, a dirty black pouch she carried everywhere, and pulled out a small wrap of white powder. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. She looked at it for a long moment, her eyes filling with tears. "God, I don't want to do this anymore," she whispered, "but I can't stop, I can't." She raised her hand to her nose, but just then she heard a small voice. "Sister, please, do you have food?" Chioma looked up. A little boy, maybe 7 years old, stood in front of her. His clothes were rags, his feet were bare, his stomach looked empty. Chioma quickly closed the wrap and put it back in her bag. She looked at the boy, then at the small loaf of bread beside her, the only thing she had eaten in 2 days. She picked up the bread. Half of it was already gone, the other half was all she had left. She looked at it, then she looked at the boy's hungry eyes. Without a word, she gave him the bread. "Take it," she said softly. "Eat." The boy's face lit up. "Thank you, sister. God bless you." He ran off, clutching the bread like it was gold. Chioma watched him go, then she looked at her empty hands. Her stomach growled, her body ached, but something inside her felt lighter. She didn't know that someone had been watching her, someone with a camera, someone who would change her life forever. But that was still to come. For now, Chioma was just a girl under a bridge, fighting demons no one could see, and deep inside she was losing. Chioma wasn't always like this. Just 3 years ago, she was a student at the University of Lagos. She studied mass communication. Her dream was to become a journalist, to tell stories that mattered, to give voice to people who had none. She lived with her mother and stepfather in a 2-bedroom flat in Surulere. Her real father had died when she was 10. Her mother, Mama Chioma, remarried 2 years later to a man named Uncle Emeka. At first, Uncle Emeka seemed nice. He paid Chioma's school fees, he bought her books. He smiled at her, but Chioma noticed something in his eyes, something dark that made her uncomfortable. "Chioma, you're growing into a fine woman," he would say, his eyes moving up and down her body. She hated it, but she said nothing. What could she say? Her mother loved him, and they needed his money. One afternoon, when Chioma was 19, her mother traveled to the village for a funeral. She would be gone for 3 days. Chioma stayed home to study for her exams. That night, Uncle Emeka came into her room. Chioma was lying on her bed, reading a textbook, when she heard her door creak open. She looked up and saw him standing there. His eyes were red. He smelled like alcohol. "Uncle, what are you doing?" she asked, sitting up quickly. He didn't answer. He just walked toward her, closing the door behind him. Chioma's heart began to race. "Uncle, please, go back to your room." He smiled. "Don't be afraid, I just want to talk to you." But he didn't want to talk. What happened next, Chioma would never forget. She screamed, she fought, she begged, but he was too strong. When it was over, he stood up, adjusted his clothes, and looked down at her with cold eyes. "If you tell your mother," he said slowly, "I will deny it, and she will never believe you, you hear me." Then he walked out. Chioma lay on her bed, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking. She felt dirty, used, broken. But she told herself she had to tell her mother. Mama had to know. Mama would believe her. Mama would protect her. She was wrong. 3 days later, when her mother returned, Chioma sat her down and told her everything. She cried as she spoke. Her hands shook. Her voice broke. Mama Chioma listened in silence. When Chioma finished, her mother stood up slowly, and then she slapped her. "You are a liar," Mama Chioma shouted. "How can you say such wicked things about your father, the man who feeds you, who pays your school fees?" "Mama, please," Chioma started, but her mother cut her off. "You want to destroy my marriage because you are jealous. You want me to be alone again, eh? You this ungrateful child." Chioma couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Mama, I'm not lying. He did it." "Shut up," her mother screamed. "Pack your things and get out of my house. I don't want to see you again." And just like that, Chioma's life fell apart. She packed a small bag, she left the house, and she never went back. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know what to do. All she knew was that the one person who should have believed her had thrown her away like trash. And that pain was worse than anything Uncle Emeka had done to her. The first week on the street was the hardest. Chioma slept in bus stops. She begged for food. She cried every night, hoping her mother would come looking for her. But Mama never came. One evening, as Chioma sat outside a closed shop, a girl around her age walked up to her. Her name was Blessing. She had kind eyes, but her clothes were dirty and her face looked tired. "You're new to the street," Blessing said, sitting beside her. Chioma nodded, wiping her tears. "Don't worry," Blessing said softly. "It gets easier, you just have to survive." Chioma looked at her. "How?" Blessing smiled sadly. "You'll see." A few days later, Blessing introduced Chioma to a group of street boys and girls who lived under Eco Bridge. They welcomed her, they shared food with her, and they shared something else. "Drugs." "Take it," Blessing said one night, handing Chioma a small wrap of powder. "It will make you forget, just for a little while." Chioma hesitated. She had never done drugs before, but the pain inside her was so heavy. The memory of her mother's slap, the feeling of Uncle Emeka's hands, the loneliness, the hopelessness. She just wanted it all to stop, even if just for a moment. So she took it. And for the first time in weeks she felt nothing, no pain, no sadness, just emptiness. It felt like relief. But relief came with a price. One time became 2 times, 2 times became every day became every few hours. Before she knew it, Chioma couldn't function without it. Her body craved it, her mind screamed for it. Months passed, then a year, then 2. Chioma forgot her dreams of becoming a journalist. She forgot what it felt like to sleep in a bed. She forgot what it felt like to be loved. All she knew now was the street, the drug, and the endless fight to survive one more day. But deep inside, in a place she tried to bury, a small voice still whispered, "This is not who you are." She tried to ignore it, but the voice wouldn't go away. And she didn't know that soon, someone would hear that voice too. Someone with a camera and millions of followers. Someone who would refuse to let her disappear. David was not your average rich man. Yes, he was a billionaire. Yes, he owned tech companies and real estate. But what made him different was his YouTube channel, David Speaks Truth. He had 5 million subscribers. Every week, he went to the streets of Lagos with his cameraman, Femi, and interviewed homeless people. He asked them their stories. He gave them food, money, sometimes even jobs, and he posted it all online. People loved him. They called him the people's billionaire. But David didn't do it for fame. He did it because he believed everyone had a story worth telling. One hot afternoon, David and Femi drove to Eco Bridge. They had heard there were many homeless people there. David wanted to meet them. As they walked under the bridge, David saw groups of people sitting in corners. Some were sleeping, some were talking, some were just staring into space. Then he saw her. Chioma was sitting alone, her back against a pillar. Her clothes were torn, her hair was rough, her eyes were red and tired. But there was something about her, something that made David stop. He walked over to her slowly. Femi followed, camera rolling. "Good afternoon," David said gently. Chioma looked up at him, confused. She didn't recognize him. She didn't know who he was. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice rough. "My name is David," he said with a smile. "I make videos about people's stories. Can I talk to you for a few minutes?" Chioma laughed bitterly. "My story? Why would anyone care about my story?" David knelt down so he was at her level. "Because everyone's story matters, including yours." Chioma stared at him for a long moment, then she shrugged. "Fine, but I don't have much to say." David smiled. "That's okay, just tell me, how did you end up here?" And for the first time in 3 years, Chioma started to talk. She told him about her mother, about Uncle Emeka, about being thrown out, about the drugs. She spoke slowly, her voice shaking, tears falling from her eyes. Femi kept the camera rolling, but even he had tears in his eyes. When Chioma finished, David was quiet for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out some money. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "Get yourself something to eat." Chioma looked at the money, 10,000 naira, more than she had seen in months. Her hands trembled as she took it. "Thank you," she whispered. David stood up. "I'll be back," he said. "I promise." Chioma watched him walk away. She didn't believe him. People always said they would come back, but they never did. But David was different, and she was about to find out just how different he was. 2 days later, David uploaded the video. The title was simple. She was thrown away by her own mother. This is her story. Within hours, the video had 100,000 views. By the next morning, it had 1 million. Comments flooded in. "This broke my heart. How can a mother do this to her child? David, please help her. We need to find this girl and save her." David read every comment, and he made a decision. He called Femi. "Get the car, we're going back to Eco Bridge." When they arrived, Chioma was still there. She was sitting in the same spot, staring at nothing. David walked up to her. "Chioma." She looked up, surprised to see him again. You came back." "I told you I would," David said with a smile. "Listen, I want to help you, but I need you to trust me." Chioma's eyes filled with tears. Why do you care?" David knelt down again. "Because I see you, Chioma. I see who you used to be, and I believe you can be that person again." Chioma shook her head. "You don't understand. I'm broken, I'm addicted, I'm nothing." David took her hand gently. "You're not nothing. You're someone who deserves a second chance. Will you let me help you?" Chioma looked into his eyes. For the first time in years, she saw something she thought she had lost forever: hope. She nodded slowly. "Okay." David smiled. "Good, let's go." He helped her to her feet. Femi was filming everything. Chioma looked at the camera nervously. "Where are we going?" she asked. David looked at her kindly. "Somewhere safe, somewhere you can heal." And as they walked toward the car, Chioma didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change in ways she never imagined. But not everyone was happy about it. Back in Serula, someone was watching that video, someone who recognized Chioma's face. Mama Chioma sat in her living room, her phone in her hand, staring at the screen, her face twisted with anger. "So she's telling lies about us to the whole world now," she hissed. Uncle Emeka walked into the room. "What are you talking about?" Mama Chioma turned the phone to him. "Look, that girl is bringing shame to our family." Uncle Emeka's face went pale when he saw the video. "We have to stop this," he said quietly. Mama Chioma nodded. "Yes, before everyone finds out the truth." But the truth was already coming, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. David took Chioma to a private rehabilitation center in Lekki. It was a beautiful place with clean rooms, medical staff, and counselors who specialized in addiction recovery. When Chioma walked through the doors, she couldn't believe it. Everything was white and clean. It smelled like flowers. There were beds with soft mattresses and pillows. She turned to David, tears streaming down her face. I don't deserve this." David put his hand on her shoulder. "Yes, you do. You deserve every bit of this." A kind woman in a white coat walked up to them. Her name was Dr. Amina. "Welcome, Chioma," Dr. Amina said with a warm smile. "We're going to take good care of you here." Chioma nodded, unable to speak. David squeezed her shoulder one last time. "I'll come visit you, but right now you need to focus on getting better. Can you do that for me?" Chioma looked at him and nodded. "I'll try." "That's all I ask," David said. Then he turned and walked out. As Chioma watched him leave, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: gratitude. The first week was hell. Chioma's body went through withdrawal. She shook, she vomited, she screamed, she begged the nurses to let her leave. But Dr. Amina and her team were patient. They stayed with her, they held her hand, they told her she was strong. "You can do this, Chioma," Dr. Amina would say every night, one day at a time. Slowly the physical pain began to fade, but the emotional pain was still there. The memories, the shame, the betrayal. One afternoon, Dr. Amina sat with Chioma in the garden. "Chioma," she said gently, "healing your body is only the first step. We also need to heal your mind and your heart." Chioma looked down. "How?" "Every time I close my eyes, I see his face. I hear my mother's voice calling me a liar." Dr. Amina took her hand. "Then we will work through it, together. You are not alone anymore." And for the first time, Chioma believed her. Meanwhile, David's video continued to go viral. It now had over 10 million views. People from all over Nigeria were calling for Chioma's mother to be questioned. News channels picked up the story, bloggers wrote articles, social media exploded. And in Surulere, Mama Chioma's life was beginning to fall apart. Mama Chioma sat in her living room, surrounded by family members. Her sisters, her cousins, even her pastor had come to ask her about the video. Mama Chioma, her eldest sister, asked carefully, "Is it true? Did Chioma really tell you that Emeka touched her?" Mama Chioma's face hardened. "That girl is a liar. She was always jealous of my marriage. She made up that wicked story because she wanted me to suffer." Her pastor leaned forward. "But Mama, why would she lie about something so serious?" "Because she is evil," Mama Chioma shouted. "I raised her, I fed her, and this is how she repays me, by disgracing me online." Uncle Emeka, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, suddenly stood up. "I can't take this anymore," he said. "People are calling me a rapist because of that girl's lies. I'm going to sue her." Mama Chioma nodded. "Yes, we will sue her and that YouTuber for defamation." But even as she spoke, doubt flickered in the eyes of her family members. Something didn't feel right. One of her cousins, a younger woman named Ngozi, spoke up quietly. "Mama Chioma, I have to ask, did you ever consider that maybe Chioma was telling the truth?" The room went silent. Mama Chioma turned to Ngozi slowly, her eyes blazing. "Get out of my house." "But Mama," "I said get out." Ngozi stood up, shaking her head sadly. "You know, Mama, the truth always comes out, always." And with that, she left. The room was quiet after she left. Mama Chioma looked around at her family members. Some looked at her with pity, others looked away. Deep inside, Mama Chioma knew. She knew that if she had just listened to her daughter that day 3 years ago, none of this would be happening. But pride is a powerful thing, and Mama Chioma had too much pride to admit she was wrong. So instead, she doubled down on her lies, and she prepared to destroy her daughter one more time. 3 months passed. Chioma was a different person. Her eyes were clear, her skin glowed, she had gained weight, she smiled more. She attended therapy sessions every day. She talked about her trauma. She cried, she screamed, she let it all out. And slowly, she began to heal. One day, David came to visit. When Chioma saw him, she ran up and hugged him. "David, thank you for everything." David laughed, surprised but happy. "Look at you, you look amazing." Chioma wiped her tears. "I feel amazing. For the first time in years I feel alive." They sat in the garden and talked. Chioma told him about her progress, about the therapy, about the plans she was making for her future. "I want to help people like me," Chioma said, her eyes shining. "People who have been thrown away, people who think they don't matter. I want to tell them they do." David smiled. "Then let's make it happen." He pulled out his phone. "Chioma, I want to make another video with you, but this time I want you to tell your story in your own words, to look into the camera and speak your truth. Are you ready for that?" Chioma took a deep breath. She thought about her mother, about Uncle Emeka, about all the people who had turned their backs on her. And then she thought about the little boy under the bridge, the one she gave her last piece of bread to. She nodded. "Yes, I'm ready." The next day, they filmed the video. Chioma sat in front of the camera, her hands folded in her lap, and spoke from her heart. "My name is Chioma," she began, her voice steady. 3 years ago, I was a university student with dreams. Today, I am a survivor." She told her story, all of it, the assault, her mother's betrayal, the drugs, the streets, and her journey to recovery. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. David uploaded the video that same night. The title was, "I am not a liar, I am a survivor. This is my truth." Within 24 hours, it had 15 million views. And this time, something different happened. People didn't just watch, they acted. Women from all over Nigeria began sharing their own stories of assault and betrayal. Hashtags started trending. Hashtag believe Chioma, hashtag justice for Chioma, hashtag mothers who failed. The pressure on Mama Chioma and Uncle Emeka became unbearable. And then something unexpected happened. Someone came forward with evidence. Evidence that would expose Uncle Emeka's lies and vindicate Chioma once and for all. Dr. Amina walked into Chioma's room one morning, holding a small, worn notebook. "Chioma," she said gently, "do you remember this?" Chioma looked at the notebook and gasped. It was her diary, the one she had kept when she was still living at home. She thought she had lost it when her mother threw her out. Where did you find this?" Chioma asked, taking it with trembling hands. "David found it," Dr. Amina explained. "He went back to your old neighborhood and spoke to some people. Your neighbor, Mama Tund, had been keeping it all this time. She said you dropped it the day you left." Chioma opened the diary, page after page of her handwriting, entries about school, about her dreams, about her fears. And then she reached the entries from 3 years ago. "January 15th, Uncle Emeka came into my room again tonight. He just stood there watching me. I told Mama I don't feel comfortable, but she said I'm overreacting. February 3rd, he touched my shoulder today. It felt wrong. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. February 20th, I can't write what happened tonight. I can't, but I have to tell Mama I have to." Chioma's hands shook as she read her own words. Tears streamed down her face. This is proof," she whispered, "proof that I told the truth." Dr. Amina nodded. David wants to know if you're comfortable with him showing this to the police, and maybe even posting parts of it online. Chioma looked up, her eyes fierce. Yes, show everyone, I'm done being silent. That evening, David made another video. This time, he showed pages from Chioma's diary with her permission. He read the entries aloud, his voice heavy with emotion. The video ended with David looking directly into the camera. This is not just Chioma's story, he said. This is the story of thousands of girls who are not believed, who are thrown away, who are told they are liars when they speak the truth. It has to stop, and it stops with us believing them. The video went viral immediately. News stations called for interviews. Human rights organizations demanded an investigation. And finally, the police issued a warrant for Uncle Emeka's arrest. 2 days later, police officers showed up at Mama Chioma's house. Neighbors gathered outside, watching as Uncle Emeka was handcuffed and led to the police van. "I didn't do anything," Uncle Emeka shouted. "This is all lies. That girl is trying to destroy me." But the evidence was too strong. The diary, the testimonies from neighbors who had heard Chioma screaming that night, even a doctor who had examined Chioma years ago and kept records. It was all there. Mama Chioma stood at the doorway, watching her husband being taken away. For the first time, the reality of what she had done, choosing him over her daughter, hit her. She collapsed to her knees, crying. But no one came to comfort her. The neighbors just stared. Some shook their heads in disgust. "You threw away your own child for that man," one woman said loudly. "May God forgive you, because we won't." Mama Chioma buried her face in her hands and wept. Meanwhile, at the rehabilitation center, Chioma sat in the garden with David. Femi was there too, camera rolling. "They arrested him," David told her gently. "He's going to face justice." Chioma didn't smile, she just nodded slowly. "Good." "How do you feel?" David asked. Chioma was quiet for a long time, then she spoke. "I feel free. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I can breathe." David smiled. "You did it, Chioma. You spoke your truth, and the world listened." Chioma looked at him, tears in her eyes. "No, David, you did it. You believed me when no one else did." David shook his head. "I just gave you a platform, but the courage, that was all you." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Chioma spoke again. "David, I want to do something. I want to start a foundation. For girls like me, girls who have nowhere to go, girls who need someone to believe them." David's face lit up. "I think that's a beautiful idea, and I'll help you build it." Chioma smiled, a real, genuine smile. "Thank you." But there was still one more thing she had to do, one more person she had to face, her mother. 2 weeks later, Chioma stood outside her mother's house. David was with her, so was Dr. Amina, and Femi, of course, with his camera. Chioma's heart was pounding. She hadn't seen her mother in 3 years. Part of her wanted to run, but a stronger part of her knew she had to do this. She knocked on the door. After a moment, the door opened. Mama Chioma stood there, looking older and more tired than Chioma remembered. Her eyes widened when she saw her daughter. "Chioma," she whispered. "Mama," Chioma replied, her voice steady. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Mama Chioma's face crumpled and she began to cry. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have protected you. I was a terrible mother." Chioma's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained calm. "Yes, Mama, you were." Mama Chioma flinched, as if she had been slapped. "You chose a man over your own daughter," Chioma continued. "You called me a liar when I told you the truth. You threw me into the street like I was nothing. Do you know what that did to me?" "I know," Mama Chioma cried. "I know, and I will regret it for the rest of my life." Chioma took a deep breath. I didn't come here for your apology, Mama. I came here to tell you something. Mama Chioma looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. I forgive you, Chioma said. Mama Chioma gasped. Not because you deserve it, Chioma continued, but because I deserve peace. I've spent 3 years carrying the pain of what you did to me. I'm not carrying it anymore. I'm letting it go. Tears streamed down Mama Chioma's face. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. Chioma nodded. But forgiving you doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean we can go back to how things were. That's not possible. Mama Chioma's face fell. I have a new life now, Chioma said. A life where I help people who have been hurt the way I was hurt, and you're not part of that life. With that, Chioma turned and walked away. David and Dr. Amina followed her. Mama Chioma stood in the doorway, watching her daughter leave for the second time. But this time, it was Chioma's choice. And somehow, that made all the difference.